Hey, welcome back to Out of Spec Reviews. So I've had issues with the premium Japanese segments for a while. Acura, Infiniti, Lexus. So Lexus specifically has had some boring dynamics, slow drivetrains, and pretty bad infotainment, honestly. Of course, there's exceptions, like the IS 500 is just stupid fun, and the LC 500 on track is a total monster, and I would road trip that across the country in a heartbeat. But now they have this. So Toyota and Lexus, the group, have basically placed their stake in the ground on hybridization. They were first to be really good at it, with the RX being the first like hybrid SUV for Lexus, and obviously Toyota with the Prius being insanely popular. I had one, it was great. But now we're looking at this. Instead of a full battery electric full send like I kind of hoped Toyota would do, and Lexus subsequently, they've just stuck with hybrids. It's like everyone's trying to take pages from this book of electrification, and Toyota and Lexus have decided not everyone needs to be on the same page. And anything is a step forward. And when you're talking about volume, when you're talking about numbers, this is a step forward technically. From a business perspective, Lexus has a point. They sell hybrids like hotcakes, and this is the best-selling SUV in its segment, so makes sense. People are gonna buy it. May as well throw hybrids in it to improve it even more. Fuel economy, everything. So in this video, I'll take you on a quick tour of the entirely new RX lineup. This is a short first drive event hosted by Lexus, so I have very limited time with each car, but I wanted to share everything I learned about what they have to offer. I get to try each of the powertrains, the turbocharged 2.4 liter of the RX 350, the naturally aspirated but hybridized 2.5 liter RX 350h, the plug-in hybrid RX 450h Plus, and the flagship turbocharged 2.4 liter hybrid with e-axle, the RX 500h. Are you lost yet with all these names? I sure am. The Lexus RZ will be a battery electric crossover, sharing its platform with the Toyota BZ4X and Subaru Solterra, but with styling and technology more similar to this RX, at least that's what we think. But even with that on the horizon, with the RZ coming someday, they're still pledging allegiance to hybridization with the RX. They've in fact updated it across the board, an entirely new 5th generation. So where's Lexus coming from? Well, this is the current, at the moment on sale RX. And it's fine, honestly, but they've fixed so many things. Notice how giant the grille was. That's one thing everyone complained about. And just the overall styling is almost like too styled. On one hand, it looks kind of cool. Objectively, it's still a good looking vehicle, I think, overall. For a CUV anyways, it never really stood out to me. So here's where they're coming from an interior perspective. Kind of an ugly wheel, not gonna lie. And this infotainment, pretty horrible trackpad type thing. The screen is too far away to like actually touch, and so the trackpad's like the best way to manipulate it, but even then it doesn't work that well, and it's just annoying to work. I just never liked it. Not many people did actually. And then, I don't know, pretty bland buttons from ages ago. So interior has been improved dramatically. The seat is not amazing. I mean, it's still in general pretty nice. It's still Lexus, but it's really, there's a lot of good improvements. So what's new? So that was the outgoing RX. Not bad, honestly. It was fine. And there's a reason they're leading the segment. They kind of invented the segment actually 25 years ago with the RX, the first gen. By the way, RX, what does it stand for? Fun trivia question. Radiant crossover. And it's fairly radiant. I don't think it really was back then. It kind of looked a little ugly if you ask me. But Lexus is trying to figure out their design language, and I think they have truly finally nailed the RX design. This thing looks really good. So again, this is the 5th generation now, and looks pretty similar to the 4th at first glance, but you'll finally see a few noticeable improvements. So this is the RX 350, by the way. This gas engine has 275 horsepower, around 300 torque, and that's more pep, more torque anyways, than the outgoing V6. Improved fuel economy, and it's a bit lighter because materials are just better. And this is adapted with an 8-speed automatic transmission. So that's one powertrain. The whole invention of this segment by Lexus, that they like to remind us, with the original RX was give people kind of a higher sedan, higher viewing height and more space, and just do kind of the SUV thing, but nicer in a more luxurious way. So I'm gonna go take this on a really quick drive. I don't wanna make this all about the gas one because no one really cares about that. Sorry, Lexus. Everyone's interested in the hybridization, the electrification. So let's jump in this for a minute, then we'll get to the hybrids. So firing it up, first things first, this digital cockpit is a huge step up from the old one. It's just, everything's so much more refined. We'll obviously get into like the hybrid powertrain components of the hybrid models, but as just like almost an entry-level Lexus RX, this is really, really solid. The suspension is damped better. This doesn't even have the active suspension that we'll see on the 500h. I'm glad they still have dials, you know, the air conditioning and volume knob and everything. Great, love that. But you have to go into the screen, which makes a horrible noise. I mean, it's not offensive necessarily, but listen to this. It sounds like I'm getting ready to like launch, which maybe I should do. Sport mode, full send. Pretty decently snappy shifts. So yeah, and in almost every way, this feels more refined than the outgoing model. It's quieter, the road noise is better, the materials feel nicer, and then you have nicer tech. It's just a huge, huge improvement. So who knows how many of the gas ones they'll sell. The 8-speed automatic transmission seems pretty great. Helps, again, get the slightly better fuel economy over the V6. Same with the weight savings. The turbo makes it engaging and fun. Really, really do like it. But enough with the gas one. No one cares about that. Let's go check out the hybrid. So we saw the RX 350 with the 2.4 liter turbo inline 4. Now I have with me the RX 350h, the hybrid. Yeah, basically a Prius, but better, way better. It's Lexusified. Is that a word? So this has the 2.5 liter Atkinson 4-cylinder engine, inline 4, producing 250 horsepower, 233 pound-feet of torque. So a bit slower than the turbocharged one. But this is the fuel sipper, this is the hybrid. It's that Prius mentality, and impressively it gets mid to even upper 30s, theoretically. We'll of course test it eventually, because people buy these things for fuel efficiency, at least the 350h, that's the whole idea. Instead of the 8-speed transmission or 6-speed in the case of the 500h, this has a CVT. Also, probably not that inspiring to drive. I don't know, we'll drive it in a second, but I'll show you around because this is the one I wanted to actually show more of the body and interior and stuff in detail. So as far as styling goes, this is not an F Sport model of any kind. It is just, yeah, I think Premium Plus maybe luxury. It comes with Premium, Premium Plus, Luxury, or F Sport handling. You have F Sport Performance. There's a lot of options. But again, this is the beautiful Nori Green. Looks great out here in the vineyard. And here's the spindle grille, the non-F Sport variant. I think it looks really cool. It kind of goes into the body, if you will, on either side. So basically, it no longer has the giant Lexus grille that goes all the way to the top. The hood is actually lowered a bit, and the A-pillar is actually pushed back a bit for better driver visibility, which is true. I have to agree with that. Down around back, you have the Blade taillight going all the way across. Looks great. No visual signs of any sort of exhaust, which is fine. I'll take that over fake exhaust pipes any day. They really finally nailed the proportions. It's got a cool kind of drop off right there with the grille. It's vertically stacked, as they call it. Open up the rear here. Classic Toyota Lexus beep. And in the rear, you have a 1.5 kilowatt outlet if you get the hybrid variant. First aid kit looks nice. And a spare tire, which you also don't see that much anymore. There's your 9-inch sub from the Mark Levinson sound system, and power folding chairs, which is awesome. I'm not gonna fold them all down right now, but both sides can be power folded. I think that's an option as well. You can of course close this, lock and walk as they call the other version. The battery is actually under the seats back here, and it is a nickel hydride 216 cell battery pack. And the door handles are really interesting. You actually just push it and that unlocks it. It's one of those electrically unlocking ones. You can also override it by pulling on that twice. So there's options, but great interior feel, fit and finish. There's of course a lot of different varieties of ways you can spec these cars. 10 exterior colors, which is pretty awesome. In the back here we have the optional heated and ventilated seats. So this must be the luxury one, I think. It's got like every bell and whistle. Get it fired up, get some AC going. It's a warm day out here. This infotainment, huge step up from the prior one. One thing I will say I miss is the rotary dial that actually tells you the driving modes. Instead, you have to go into here and then frequently use, which is hopefully your driving modes. Of course, you can also swipe over to drive mode itself and then select sport, normal, make a custom one. But in general, very good UI. I think they have one of the best UIs, except that beeping noise is a bit annoying. One thing to note is the UI itself, you can't actually do split screen, which is a bit strange. I think some other cars can. So I guess a way around that is to actually use CarPlay, which can do split screen and takes up the whole screen. Doesn't leave a weird bar over there. So that's great. In front of you, sorry about the dusty display, but you can kind of see the outline of the screen. It's a small portion of the gauge cluster, which I think is a bit disappointing. That's one of the only parts that makes this feel not quite the nicest of places. It's still fine, like you get all the critical info like fuel and such. And then this cool thing, it's not super monumental, but it opens from both sides. That's pretty cool. Huge panoramic roof, which can be opened, but is not electrochromatic. And then a digital rear mirror that's actually pretty nice. You can even fold the rear seats from the screen itself. So that's pretty cool. And you can get real leather on the very highest trim. So you can spec these almost to your heart's content, which is pretty awesome. But let's go see how this relatively Prius-like RX drives. Right, let's see what this CVT has. It's a little slow, but so is a Prius. That's not the point. It's still great to drive. Great driving position, comfortable seats. Everything is good about this. This has the optional 10-way seat, which is nice. But it's not meant to handle like the 500H or anything like that. It's just a good way to get a car this size while retaining some good fuel economy. Driving train aside, it's a bit overwhelming that they offer 4 drivetrains, but this one really does do its own trick, if you ask me. Okay, the electric motor adds a little bit of a kick down low, which is where these engines would normally struggle. So it's a proven concept, this whole Atkinson hybrid thing, and it seems like this one's calibrated really quite well. The Venza has electrochromatic glass in the roof, so it can basically become opaque, or I guess translucent, versus transparent. So it's a bit surprising that even the nicest RX doesn't get that. And although I wish it had the roof from the Venza, I'll take this infotainment over the Venza all day, every day. Really don't like that car's specific layout of things. Capacitive buttons for climate. This does it properly, does it well. The dials are great. So why are they focusing so hard on hybrid vehicles? In some ways, it's just business. The truth is the electric vehicle adoption is still pretty slow. Even though we're starting to see more and more from manufacturers, more on the roads, it's still under 5%. At least that's as of the last data check I did. It's about 4.6% EV adoption, which on one hand, it's growing massively, but that's still a very small percentage of vehicles on the road. And Lexus supposedly is planning to be full EV by 2030. So they're not denying EV, they're just delaying EV. Delaying full EV, battery electric. They still are doing a lot with hybrid electric and plug-in hybrid electric. And yeah, I just can't wait to drive that RZ. I think that's gonna be pretty interesting and a really intriguing EV when it comes out, even if it's front-wheel drive biased. We don't know pricing yet. That's another hard part about some of these first drive events. I can tell you how it drives in a vacuum and compare it to some other things for reference, but I just don't know if it's a good value. And if this is priced too high, which the current RX averages probably 60 grand or so, then that's on one hand a great car, but there's a lot of EVs you can buy for that much money. I have one really quick bonus car to show you. This is the Lexus RX 450h Plus, the plug-in hybrid. They brought one. It's a European spec. I have to preface it with that because it's, yeah. not to US spec. This is pretty compelling, and honestly adds to the argument that I wish this was an EV. And then you got those things just guzzling gas around town. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go drive back to the event in full electric mode because I can. This is awesome. The RX 450h Plus is coming, but Lexus won't say when and have no information to give at this time. But they were able to bring this European spec over to the States, so we could at least get a feel for what it's like. So, it is Euro spec, but I think it might be similar. But this is your European Type 2 port, so that's where you'll find your, presumably in the US, J1772. Otherwise, it's like the same as all the other ones. There it is. Right. So if I hit auto EV mode, there we go. Let's see if I can floor it again with EV mode. Aha, so it does let you do full electric all the way to the floor. There is a kickdown switch you can hit, but that's actually pretty quick. Wow, I like this. How quiet it is, although that does accentuate a bit more of the wind noise and tire noise. But this is a pretty good, refined driving experience, I will say. And decent power. I'm guessing it's the 80 kilowatt rear axle that is found in the 500h, but not positive. Spinning tires, haha. See, that's fun. And it's genuinely really pretty quick. I'm impressed. You don't even need the gas engine. In fact, it feels a bit faster than the other ones, I think. Should we try a 0 to 60 or a 0 to 100 kph? Yeah, not very quick. There's 60, so that's pretty slow, but the low end torque, that's where this really gets you. So, I don't know, that's it. There's your quick look at the RX 450h Plus, the plug-in hybrid. No idea how much range it's gonna have, although it claims on a full battery that I saw earlier that it would have about 45 to 50 kilometers, which is, I think, pretty good. You know, it's effectively, most likely, the RAV4 Prime kind of underneath, and same with the NX plug-in. So that's kind of to be expected, but this is pretty sweet. So there you have it. Really quick sneak preview of the 450h Plus plug-in hybrid, or of the RX lineup. I promise we'll try to spend some time with the plug-in when it actually comes to the US, but it's probably gonna be really similar to this. I just had to clarify, this is Euro spec. And last, but certainly not least, the Lexus RX 500h. This is, if they had a halo car for the RX, this is it. We didn't get the RX F. That would have been super cool, super fun, super spicy. Nope, we got this. This is a new copper color. Really like it. Copper Crest, I think is what it's called. Here is the turbo 4-cylinder from the same one from the combustion engine, except instead of mated to an 8-speed automatic, this one's mated to a 6-speed automatic and a hybrid drivetrain. So it has the E-axle, which I think is 80 kilowatts of power, bigger, beefier brakes, and the actual rotors are 2.5 inches bigger than the standard brakes. So that's pretty good stopping power. It has the new Direct 4 all-wheel drive system. All-wheel drive is standard on this one, which is great. So who would buy this over an EV, which is inherently more sporty? I mean, this gets 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds. Almost every EV smokes that. So who would buy this? I think it's someone who doesn't just care about those dynamics. This is actually a nicer place to be than most EVs. I know, hot take, but the materials are amazing. The fit and finish is amazing. You close the door and it's just total silence. So 366 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque, at least those are the numbers we know of right now. I think it's a pretty good car. Looks pretty good. Let's see how it drives. And launching in 3, 2, 1. Oh, yep, she pulls. So, I wish the RX F were a thing. That addition of the electric E-axle in the rear, which I'm guessing is the same as the rear motor from the BZ4X all-wheel drive, although they won't confirm that. At least they haven't yet, but yeah, we're still waiting on details. Some wheel spin there. The performance is just not, it's not like a Halo car performance, which I think they could have done. They could have taken that extra step and given us the RXF, which would have been the wild, crazy thing. Kind of like the IS 500 of like, what is this even doing? A little bit of torque steer there. Just pretty good dynamics, honestly. That rear wheel steer is nice. It's too bad it doesn't come on all of them. It's only 4 degrees, I think, but it does help. At low speed, counter steering to give you a tighter turning radius. At higher speed, elongates the feel of the turns. In case you're wondering, the rear wheel steer only comes available on the RX 500H. None of the other models get it in any of their trims. And why even make a spicy RX while we're on this topic? Well, it's really kind of that Halo car mentality. Not a volume seller, but it's something that stirs up headlines, gets people excited, and I guess if you're in the market for the crossover, want something a little bit fun, but not looking for like true super sports compact SUV material, the 500H does kind of fill that sweet spot. So the RX 500H. I know the H stands for hybrid, but could it stand for handling too? It really boogies. Uphill, like this is the Colorado spec, believe it or not. It's weird to me that they put the 6-speed automatic in here, the 8-speed automatic in the gas one, the CVT in the other hybrid one. I assumed they would put the 8-speed auto in this, but the 6-speed auto, it's just fewer gears to row through. Not that you're actually rowing manually, but I think it's pretty fun. The turbo seems to spool up at the right time, and the electric assist with the E-axle in the back is what really pulls the car, I think. I wish you could downshift a bit more at like let's say I'm doing 50, still can't go to second. So that's a bit of a downside. Doesn't feel like it could really pull like I want it to at all times. But in general driving, like this is almost just the one you leave to do all the shifting itself. Don't even pick, don't even try. But man, does it really get down. It pumps some sound in through the speakers, which is a bit annoying. I'm sure you can turn that off, at least I would hope so. But I don't know, it's not the worst I've heard, if that helps. But the adaptive suspension seems to do pretty well. The rear wheel steering is nice. Those are just small, subtle things. Like, it didn't need either of those things, but they're trying to push as much stuff into this car as they can. The only thing I wish is that this was actually a plug-in hybrid. If they just ditch the 450 plus, or whatever, keep it for those who don't care about the like actual performance. But a performance-minded mid to near luxury SUV that you could have as a plug-in hybrid with like 30 miles of range. I mean, 50 would be better, but you know, then when you start getting heavier, bigger battery packs and all that, that's a car I think some people would consider, I would consider it, something you can shred in the canyons like this, and then something you can commute in with no gas at all. That'd be brilliant. But until then, we have this. Lexus is hammering down slowly but surely on their electrification strategy. So yeah, it's a good car. I think it looks good. They've solved so many things with the old generation that I didn't even realize needed to be solved. It was fine. Now it's good. Ooh, really good brakes too. It's still fun, but it could have been spicier. So obviously we cover mostly EVs on this channel, but I don't want to leave the electrified products out to dry, because for so many people, hybrid or plug-in hybrid is still the go-to. You care about gas savings, you care about the environment, and any step forward is still a step forward. In this case, it's a step. It's maybe even a baby step, but they're still working towards it. I think we all thought, at least I thought, Toyota would be an early leader in the EV game, given their early adoption and leading strategies for hybridization. but they're really just planting that stake in the ground and keeping with the hybrids for now. So that's the RX, the Radiant crossover. Sure, the 500h is a blast, but I think the 350h, this one that I'm in right now, is probably gonna be a bestseller in some ways. 500h is fun, stupid fun, but I have a feeling it's gonna be a little bit expensive, and it has cool tech, but I just wish it was a plug-in hybrid, honestly. Like something you could rip in the canyons and then drive around in electric mode when you need to. Maybe the RZ will fix all that, who knows? But it's good. It's honestly really, really good. And hybrid still has a place in the industry. I know there's some holdouts, some eternal holdouts like Toyota and Lexus. They're not jumping into the EV game as fast as some others, but we've seen some of the people who have jumped in the EV game prematurely and have had major recalls and issues, and that's all part of it. They're taking their time to develop it. We'll see where it goes. But I think this highlights what they're doing right. In almost every car I drive that's combustion or hybrid, that's not EV, I wish it was an EV. This is one of those, but for what it is, it's really good. And I always gauge these kind of cars like, I'm not in the market for a crossover. I'm not the person shopping for this. But if I was to go rent a car and needed a crossover, what would I get? I'd probably rent an RX. See you in the next one.